So we are in the Seesaw activity for math called Geometry Extensions Activities, and I wanted to take a few moments just to talk through what is expected on each of the 4 pages. So I will click on my Add Response button and start my response. I am the sample student, so I'll click on Sample Student, and I will get a sheet just like you will. At this point, the first page. On the first page, it is simply identifying each of the angles through what it looks like. So you will notice on this first one, for the example, this one is an obtuse angle because it is greater than 90 degrees. And so what this person has done is over here in this line written the word obtuse. I will go ahead and do number 1 and number 2 also so you can see how that works. So number 1, as I look at that, that looks like to me a right angle. If I had my right angle template, I could place it in there and I would see that it's a right angle. So I will create a text box, I will type in right, and I will then resize this so it will fit, and then move it over into 1, and right there is the right angle. We can see that number 1, it fits into number 1, and that is a right angle. I will look at number 2. Number 2, once again, that is more than 90 degrees, and as we have discussed numerous times, more than 90 degrees means it is a obtuse angle. So I will click on the text box, and I will write OBTUSE for obtuse. If I click and I shrink it down to where it will fit in the line, I move it over, and now I have in number 2, which you can see this is number 2, this is angle 2, into the box to obtuse. You will fill out the rest of these doing that same technique. Moving on to the next. This one, it's simply asking you, all right, so if I know that an angle is 97 degrees, is that 97 degrees an obtuse angle, a right angle, a straight angle, or an acute angle? Well, from my definition, I know that obtuse angles are angles that are greater than 90 degrees. I know that this angle is an obtuse angle. So, using my text again, I can write OBTUSE, and I can then place it into my box and know that that is an obtuse angle. You do not need to put it into both columns. All this is asking for the same answer. You can just write it in right next to where the angle measurement is. If you're having problems remembering, you can always go to your journal, into the geometry folder, and look at your definitions of obtuse, right, acute, and straight angles there. How about if we do number 5? Number 5 is 39 degrees. I know that 39 degrees is less than 90 degrees, and any angle that is less than 90 degrees is an acute angle. So I will type in acute. I will then shrink it, click and move it next to number 5, and there number 5 is answered that that is an acute angle. Again, you do not need to do anything in this column. This column is just extra. You only need to put the angles in on the first column of the worksheet. Moving on to number 3. As we see number 3, I'm going to get in just a touch closer so we can see what's going on here. Solve each problem. Well, let's see. As I look at this one, which choice best represents angle ABC? So it's asking you on this angle, which measurement does it look most like? Does it look like 42? Does it look like 73, which is almost 90 degrees? Does it look like C, 146 degrees, which that's an obtuse angle, so we know it can't be 146. Does it look like D, 102 degrees, which again, we know is obtuse, so it cannot be C or D. You must pick between A and B because A is about half of 90, which this looks about half of 90, or B, which is almost 90 degrees. This isn't even close to 90 degrees, so the answer on this one would be A. As we go over to our column, you would type in A. And we know that that is the correct answer. Notice once again how I did that. I could also write it in there if I want, although it's easier for me, Mrs. Mast, and Miss Icestone to read if you were to type it. Let's look at number 2. Number 2, it's asking once again, this angle, KLM, which is KLM, is it closest to 52 degrees, which is about half of 90? Is it 174? Absolutely not, because that is an obtuse angle, and this angle is an acute angle. Is it C, 13 degrees? 13 degrees is really close to a narrow angle, which I'm thinking 13 would be the right answer. Or is it 98 degrees? Impossible to be 98, because once again, 98 is an obtuse angle, and this angle is an acute angle. So I'm going to go with C, 13 degrees. All you do is come over here. Once again, hit your C. I'm going to shrink this box down so it fits nice on that line. So as we then back out, we can see that the first couple have been done for you. There are 9 more for you to do in the same way. The last page, finding angles within shapes. I'm going to use number 2 as our example. So when we look at number 2, how many angles are there? There are 3 angles. We have this angle with this vertex, this angle with this vertex, this angle with this vertex. The question is asking how many acute, obtuse, and right angles are in each shape. Well, as I look at this, I think, all right, how many acute angles? Well, there's one here, that's less than 90. There's one here, that's less. So there are 2 acute angles in this triangle. Well, I'm going to find, this is number 2, so I'm going to find the line for number 2 down here. I'm going to use my pencil on this one, and on the acute, I am going to write a number 2. You can use the typing feature if you would like. That would be perfectly fine. I'm just trying it out with my finger. The next one is how many obtuse. See where it says O here? That O means in this column, this middle column, we're going to write how many obtuse angles are in this polygon. Well, let's look at this polygon. How many obtuse angles are there? Greater than 90 degrees. If you said 0, you are correct. There are 0 there, so I'm going to put a nice little 0. It's kind of squarish, but it's a 0. The final column asks how many right angles are there in this shape that we're looking at. Well, as I look, there are, well, let's see, looks like just one right here on the corner. So there would be 1 right angle. You will notice for the example, that's exactly what they did. How many acute angles are there? Well, there's 1 on this end and 1 on this end, which means that there are 2 acute angles. How many obtuse angles are there? Well, there's 1 on the top and 1 on the bottom and 1 on the top, which means that there are up to 2 obtuse angles. How many right angles are there in our rhombus here? The answer is 0. This is how you fill these out. Not that hard. Not if we know the difference between acute, right, obtuse, and straight angles. Which again, if you need a refresher, you can go to our math journal and look in the geometry folder for information that we have been working with for the past 2 weeks. Thank you.